Hey everyone, Matt Ackerson, founder of AutoGrow.co here, and today I'm joined by my friend Tiffany Jones. Tiffany is a startup entrepreneur. She just incorporated her first business. We went to school together at Cornell, and Tiffany's rocking the Cornell swag today. So yeah, we've talked about we've been talking kind of on and off about startups for years. Tiffany knew me when I started my first business on campus. It was text message coupons for college students. And yeah, Tiffany, I'm really psyched to learn more about your business um, and kind of talk about how we can help you market it.
Great. Thanks, Matt. I'm really excited to be talking to you about this. Like you mentioned before, I knew you at the beginning of your journey, and you were really inspirational to me. And one of the reasons why I've always been thinking about entrepreneurship and just trying to make the decision about when to finally make that jump.
Cool. Appreciate it. Thank you. You flattered me. What's the name of your company?
It's called Demetrius Limited LLC.
Hmm. And who's that named after?
It's named after my father.
Right. Awesome. And why are you starting this business? First of all, like, what do you do now? And just kind of give us full context since the audience wants to get to know you a little bit.
Right. So I am an attorney. I do mostly mergers and acquisitions. And so I work in big law. I work a lot of hours. And so I'm basically looking for ways to supplement my income and grow different opportunities.
Okay, so while you're practicing law, you're starting this business on the side. Is that right?
Correct.
Cool. And what's this company going to do? What problem are you going to solve for people or businesses? What's it all about?
So basically, it's a real estate investment company, and what we will be doing is finding distressed sellers and helping them find solutions to selling their homes. And so, what you will find is that there are some people out there who are in pre foreclosure. They may have inherited a home that they don't want anymore. They may be going through a divorce. These are people that need to offload their homes rather quickly, and don't want to go through the normal measures of finding a real estate agent, also don't want to pay those costs. And so basically, I would be helping them sell their homes by finding buyers who, are willing to purchase the homes to either flip them or to keep them as investment properties.
Okay, cool. So Demetrius is basically going to be the matchmaker, the middleman between home sellers, people who may live in distressed properties, meaning that they can't afford their mortgage, or they just want to sell their house for whatever reason. Maybe they're going through a tough time, like you said, inherited something, going through a divorce, whatever, or any other reason. And you want to kind of match them up with buyers who want to buy the property maybe for at or under market value, and then make the house better perhaps, and then sell it back for a profit.
Right. So so basically you're helping someone who already has very limited options and you're giving them cash quick. If this person was to go through normal procedures, they would normally have to wait a lot longer and have to pay a lot of upfront costs after they're able to sell that property through a real estate agent. And so basically the benefit to the seller is that they're not going to have to go through that process. Those processes could be long and drawn out just depending on what the market looks like. But it also gets cash in their hands fast. And then for the buyer, helping them find properties that might be at full market value or might be lower than that.
Okay. So does the buyer normally buy it for cheaper than what it's valued at because the seller just wants to get rid of the property, get rid of the house faster?
So in these circumstances, the seller and the buyer aren't going to be meeting. They're not going to be interacting and talking about prices. And so some buyers are, very aware of what's going on in the market. They've done a lot of research. They're buying a ton of properties. And so they're only going to buy properties at set prices. There are other buyers who are just entering into the investment field. And so for them, they may not necessarily be looking for under market deals or basically have that same type of understanding of what's in the market and how the market works.
Okay. But do the buyers, do they get some advantage kind of off the top because they're offering cash in hand up front to these?
Yes, they would get the property quickly, and the property would be cheaper than a property that was fully fixed up.
Right, right. Okay. Cool, cool. So I mean, let me make sure I got this right. So for the buyer, you're solving a problem for them because these are investors with money that they want to put into houses to make the houses better, and then to sell back to other newer home buyers who are entering the market or for whatever reason they want to buy a home. And for sellers, you're solving a problem for them because they just want to liquidate or just get rid of this house that they have and turn it into money in their pocket and just kind of have it taken off their hands.
Correct.
Okay, cool. So where are you at today with the business?
So basically, I've set up all the systems, and so and like I've set up a website also for both buyers and sellers, and so I'm at the point where I need to find customers,
Mm.
right? And so there's different methods of acquiring a customer, and when you're looking at sellers, a lot of them are one-time customers, um, but two of the methods that I'm choosing to focus on is my website. And basically those would be inbound leads, having people who are looking to sell their home. And so basically you'd look at keywords like sell my house fast within that specific city. And they're looking for anybody who could help them sell their homes. And then the other method of finding sellers would be driving around neighborhoods looking for properties that are distressed, and then basically working backwards from there, looking up all the legal records, tax records to see what's going on with the property, getting the person's information, and then contacting them.
Okay. And you want to contact them because you want to make sure they're a qualified seller in this case?
Well, they wouldn't necessarily be a qualified seller per se. They would already own the property or
Mm.
have the mortgage that's on the property.
Mhm.
But you're contacting them to see whether or not they want to sell the property.
Okay.
In some cases, a property might look like it's distressed. And so, for example, that would look like having a lot of mail in the mailbox or having really tall weeds in front of the house, right? So some
Mm.
people might be in a position where they're like, yeah, I want to sell the home. Other people might be in a position where they don't fully own the home. They're upside down in their mortgage, so you can't necessarily help them.
Mm.
So a lot of that is just like going through the weeds and trying to figure out whether or not this is a good investment for you, um, and whether or not they actually want to sell off their property.
Okay. And based on whatever buyers you have relationships with, or if you have a list in your database, you just kind of match them up and say, here, Mr. or Mrs. Investor, we found this property over here. It might match your criteria.
Correct.
Okay. And how do you make money? How does the business make money from this transaction?
So basically, I acquire the contract with the seller,
Hmm.
um, look at the property, offer them some amount.
And when you say you
Has
acquire the contract, does that kind of mean like you're almost like a real estate agent, but not obviously?
In a way, yes, except in a way, yes, except for I'm an investor and I'm bringing in my investor partners,
Mm.
right? So I am trying to sell the home, but I have a contract which allows for me to say that I own the property, or I have the ability to sell the property. A
Mm.
real estate investor would basically have a situation where they have a right to sell the property, but they have no interest in the property. The contract would provide me with that interest.
Okay, cool.
Um, and so I would have a contract with the seller, and then I would be looking at my list of investors and deciding, which ones I want to provide the opportunity to. And then I would also have a contract with them to sell that property. And so I would have to make a decision about how much money I believe I should be making on that sale.
Okay. Let me go off on a tangent for a second. Why start this business? Why not continue on the path of being a lawyer and making good money doing that. Why do you want to start a business?
So this is partially your fault, Matt. You know, when we were in college, you were really gung ho about the entrepreneur path. And so, through the course of our friendship, which has been about, I don't know, over 10 years,
Mm,
what I've seen is someone who is aggressively trying to fulfill their passion, and who's trying to build the life that they want. And so, for me, I'm in this space where I've worked incredibly hard to get what I've gotten, but I still have limited power over my complete situation. You have more power than I do. Right now, you're in Colombia. You're working remotely. I don't have that type of ability. I have that ability. I have more of that ability than other people, but I don't have it to the same extent that you have it. And so for me, it's really lifestyle control, but it's also control of my destiny. Um, if my employer could decide to fire me at any point in time, even if I do an incredibly good job, that's still their decision, right? They still have that type of power over my life. And so I want to be in the position where I have more power over my life.
definitely, definitely. Yeah, it's truly one step at a time. Um, I feel like each year has been kind of a step forward, and I can talk more about that. I think a lot of the viewers have been probably following the recent videos I've been putting out. Like this year is another step forward because for a while we were, in the service business, and now we're going to be selling products. And kind of like what you're going after, like I'm it's kind of like the idea of the pursuit of happiness. Like nothing's ever perfect. You're always going after it. And this is another step forward this year because by selling products, similar to what you're saying, control over your lifestyle, this gives me more control over my time. At least, long term, that's what I'm going after. So totally relate to that. Totally get it. Where are you at right now with your marketing? You said that you're looking for customers and you have the basic website set up. Is that right?
Yes. So right now I'm trying to work on the SEO of the content of my webpage. So I am using a real estate specific webpage provider. And so, the great thing about that is they already provide me with content, but then I have to go in there and try to manipulate the content to fit what I want to represent my company, but also, you know, the SEO aspect of that, how I drive customers to that website.
Mm,
And so right now, I've worked a bit on the content. I need to start working on, linking up other websites and other options to my website. And so that's where I am as far as the online marketing is concerned.
okay. And when you say linking up other options, are you referring to social media?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have examples or do you know of case studies where your type of business has succeeded on social media?
So no, I haven't started digging into that from that perspective. What I've seen online is like a lot of people who speak about the wholesaling business in general, but
Mm,
I haven't seen what it looks like as far as driving the actual business in that direction, because when we're talking about them talking about the wholesale business, then that's a whole nother business. That's not the actual core business of how they're making sales. And are putting themselves in the position to like actually teach the business to other people. So I haven't seen examples of that.
okay. So you might have heard or may not have heard the recent news. Mark Zuckerberg came out and he said that he wants to put more of an emphasis with Facebook on showing in people's news feeds really stories about just focus on their friends and family. And I feel as though, because I know I did, all businesses kind of looked at that and said, well, I guess that's pretty much it, because this represented kind of more of this wasn't really news so much as just kind of the probably final nail in the coffin of the idea that you can be on Facebook and drive organic reach, because that's really been declining for years at this point. So, for example, another Cornell graduate who was one of AutoGrow's first clients back in the day when I first started the business, when we were selling, website services, he spent he spent over $1 million actually acquiring 2 million fans on Facebook in the earlier days of, when they were called fans and likes and whatnot. And, the news feed looked completely different. It looked much more similar to what you would see on a personal profile. Now today, if you go to any kind of business or brand page, it looks completely different. You can't even find the news feed. And that's done on purpose because Facebook is basically now more of a pay-to-play network, if you will. And as we wrote in a new recent article on autogrow.co, it's still useful to have a page on Facebook for what's called social proof, which just means
Mm-hmm.
that, just kind of adds a little bit of credibility. Just showing that, oh, we're on Facebook. But it's really not so effective if you're looking to, get fans and then convert those fans into customers. A better strategy, if you were comparing options for, okay, do I want to pay money to, acquire leads? Let's say that you're looking at Google. You mentioned local SEO. That's good. But let's say that you wanted to pay Google on a pay-per-click basis to have one of your ads at the top of Google search, and you're comparing that option to Facebook. I think one of the things that you want to know going into it is Facebook for your market will be very competitive. So you may be paying up to 15, depending on how targeted and how specific you are with the terms. So for example, what do you think would be what's one of the keywords that you're going after right now?
Sell my house fast, St. Louis.
Okay. And do you have any idea of what the pay-per-click range would be to bid on that, to place an ad for that?
I have not looked into that.
Okay.
But because that's one of the more popular keywords, I know that that's going to be way more expensive.
Right. So you probably, because there's other competition already bidding on that keyword, I wouldn't
Right.
be surprised if you'd be paying in the range of, $15 to $20 a click. And I could be wrong about that. But the advantage is that there's intention behind that
Mm-hmm.
search, right? Now, compared to Facebook, the traffic that you can buy from there is cheaper. And it may be in the end cheaper too if you can drive those people on Facebook from a Facebook ad to a landing page, and give them some reason to opt in. So, for example, we had a client who was doing. His name was John out in California. He was doing reverse mortgages,
Mm-hmm.
and he targeted people in a very specific area on Facebook, and the cost per click was much cheaper, and was able to get people to opt in for it. But the problem is that conversion rate is going to be significantly lower because people are on Facebook to just kind of tune out and look at their friends' pictures and whatever. So you'll have to spend, I think, a good amount of time figuring out like what's a good hook to get people onto your email list, or to drive them to contact you on the spot. Because maybe it sounds like the people you're looking for is not really a nurture type of situation, meaning you're not going to look to form a relationship with them, give them a lot of free content. The people you're looking for are already in the situation, it sounds like.
Right.
And probably like when they get in that situation, it's not necessarily planned. People don't always see a divorce coming or a death in the family, whatever, and they inherit the property, right? So I think that's probably something to keep in mind, is that like you'll probably want them to take action right away and fill out a contact form.
Okay.
Um, so tell me more about the content that you're getting right now for your website. You said that the company that you paid money for is giving you some content.
Right. So the content that they have is it's a real estate specific website. And so the content that they have is it's the same content that they're giving everybody else, but basically what it does is it breaks down the fact that that this is significantly different than going through a real estate investor. And so they will list out like, if you're in these situations, this is how we could help you. And so I'm going in there and changing the content to kind of lay it out in a way that I think is more reader friendly.
Mm,
Um, and then also, um, the website already has like a lot of, I think, very basic language. There isn't a lot of complex language in there, which is really good. And so it's more of a matter of just like, okay, what keywords do I want to focus on, and how do I want to incorporate those into the page. um I know that I could play around a little bit with the pictures. I haven't gotten there yet. um I think I'm at the point where I'm done playing around with the content, and so it's now time to figure out what strategy I want to use to just drive more traffic.
mm, mm. Do you need to be able to see the property to see the house in person before you would present it to your investors?
Yes.
Okay. And that's why you want to focus, or do you need to focus on local? For example, if I had a friend, like, hey Tiffany, like, oh, I know a friend in New York, she wants to get out of this property that she just inherited. Would that work, or
So,
would you be like, no?
well, so at this point in time, I wouldn't, but that's the space that I want to move into.
Okay.
Um, I believe it's more important to focus on locals so that you get a really good understanding of what properties look like, of what type of issues are going on with the properties, and then how to negotiate through that process.
Mm.
Um, but I think long term, virtual wholesaling makes a lot of sense, and just opens up a large array of opportunities.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine that it's easier to find and kind of just find and put them on a list or in a database somewhere, the investors, on the buyer side. And then the more difficult side of the equation is finding the sellers who are, a match and who you can acquire the contract for.
So the buyers are difficult to find out unless you know how to figure them out.
Okay.
And so that's really a matter of finding people in your community and basically having them help you through the process of figuring out how to build a buyer's list.
Mm,
um, the sellers, they're difficult, but I think it really depends on the model that you're using. And so, if you're focusing on using there are a lot of people who've been very, very successful with really narrowing their focus on their website, narrowing the search keywords, really narrowing down their pay per click for certain types of words. Um, and they found a lot of success with lower costs. Um, and then just marketing strategies outside of that, right? So some people do direct mail. There's also cold calling, and cold calling it appears to be a more successful model, because you're not just like paying a ton of money for pieces of mail to go out. You're actually trying to get this person on the phone,
mm,
and you're being pretty persistent in trying to get them on the phone.
mm.
um, and so it's really about getting the ball rolling, and then after that, once you're able to start automatizing that, then it makes it a lot easier. But yes, I mean, you have to find the seller first, right? And so that's going to be the initial challenge. The question is how are you going to go about doing that, and how do you lower your costs with doing that?
Mm, mm. Okay, cool. Have you looked into email marketing at all yet?
Um, Very, very briefly. I haven't dug into that more in depth.
Because the reason I say that is, like I was saying before, this isn't the type where you find someone who's a homeowner and then one day they want to sell and you've just kind of been nurturing them over time. Although that's possible. Um, what is more likely though is that if you have a growing email list, you can build sort of a referral engine through word of mouth. And eventually people just know people and things pop up over time. Oh, hey, Tiffany, John over on Main Street, he's going through a rough time or whatever, and he wants to sell the house. Just wanted to introduce you to him. Here's his contact info. Tell him I said I referred you. Have you thought about that? Anything along those lines?
I have not thought about the referral process or emails yet.
Can I tell you a little bit about how that might work?
Sure.
So when I started AutoGrow, we I worked very hard, and I feel very lucky that we crossed six figures in the first 10 months of actually starting the company. It really blew my mind, but there was a lot of work involved in getting there. And actually, the majority of that revenue came as a result of email marketing. And what I did was really fundamentally very basic. I started by sending a newsletter every quarter, and I started with just about 450 contacts, people that I had met up at Cornell, a lot of the alumni and whatnot. And that's where clients number 2 and 3 came from, and beyond, because people would basically, what I would do with the newsletter is I just kind of tell a little bit of my story. Oh, hey everyone, I'm starting this company. I'm really excited, and this is why I'm doing it, and this is kind of the main idea behind it. And I remember I was talking about the core values that I want to build the company on, and it was and I feel like for people like us, you and I are I don't know if you would agree with this, but I think you and I are slightly introverted, and so it was a little uncomfortable at first, kind of just putting myself out there. But I think that if you were to do something similar where you send a newsletter once per month and you just kind of tell people a little bit about what's going on with you, what's with the business, but also making yourself kind of a resource for information, perhaps along the lines of what's going on, locally in the community. That's going to make people want to continually open the newsletter, because human beings are naturally curious. They want to know what's going on with you. They want to, some people might want to compare themselves. Oh, where's Tiffany at? Where am I at? And other people just want to hear more about your story, and they maybe even want to hear about the local news that you kind of have to bring them. And that positions you at the top of their mind repeatedly, so that they remember the next time something comes up. And if you do that, you'll probably see over time that as the list grows, you'll get compounding number of referrals coming back from that.
That's an interesting idea. I'm definitely gonna mull that around a bit more and see how that could work.
Yep. And that's also the reason why you might see real estate agents, for example, they try to invest in building their own personal brand. They put their heads on billboards, and I'm not saying do that, but but they all the signs in front of the houses, you might have so under contract with Dolores, whatever. So that's I think that might be a good avenue to invest in. And just to give you some stats to back that up, according to the Direct Marketing Association, this is a very cliche stat at this point, because I know that I've cited it in blog posts left and right for years. But according to the Direct Marketing Association, email is on average 10 times more effective than social media in terms of ROI. Just measuring clicks to dollars basically, and 2 times more effective than SEO. And really the reason for that is that if someone has given you their email list, their email address, they've kind of made a minor commitment to give you just a little bit of their personal information. And more than that, the engagement rate for something that's coming into your email inbox is often quite high, much higher than compared to something something that you might see while scrolling through your Facebook on social media.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you're looking for a tool to get you started, I think MailChimp is free and very user-friendly, and their templates are also pretty easy to manipulate and move around.
Okay. I'll definitely think about that. Thank you.
Yeah. I think that local SEO as well, just investing in that is absolutely the way to go. I definitely encourage you to keep going with that. Question for you. When you said content, did that also include people did they give you content just for your homepage and your about page and you could edit that, or was it also that they give you content for the blog?
All of it.
Okay.
There's content for the blog too.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Yeah. What I knew, um, uh, this person didn't end up becoming a client, but in the past, I remember I consulted with a lawyer for a potential project, and he had his law practice where he had a website, and he was paying a company, and they kind of gave him content, and so he had content on his blog, and it looked like a very complete website. The only problem was that he wasn't getting any traffic from it, and that the reason for that was because when I actually searched, for some of the sentences, for example, that were in the blog content, the exact same copy was in like 100 other lawyers' websites. So that was really the problem, because Google wants fresh, original content, and moreover, people can usually pick up on if it's something templated or cookie cutter as well. So if you were going to consider a regular blogging routine, either monthly or weekly, what I would say for that is look up the term newsjacking from David Meerman Scott. So David is the author of, I know this, I can't remember the name of the book off the top of my head, but Lawrence had mentioned it to me a while ago. He's kind of like a Seth Godin, if you've heard of him, but related to inbound marketing. He talks all about, how do you kind of nurture and build a relationship through inbound methods. Anyway, David came up with this term called newsjacking, and he started a whole brand and company around it now. And it's really the concept of you take news stories and you just kind of you include them in the content that you create for your blog, for example. And this does a couple of things. Number one, it makes what you're writing very relevant to whoever's reading it, so they want to read it then. And second of all, because you're able to get them reading, you're able to get your message through, which is, oh, hey, by the way, if you know anyone, referrals appreciated, or whatever the call to action might be within the blog post. Because the best way to think about content when you create it is it's basically like your vehicle. Every piece of content is just a little vehicle and an excuse for you to indirectly promote yourself. Because let's be honest, you're in business, and it's nice to create content, but you're also looking to find customers and make a profit. So it's win-win is what it is.
Okay. I'll definitely look that up.
Any questions that you have for me, Tiffany?
Yes. So what would your advice be for someone who's just starting out as an entrepreneur?
I would say 1,000-mile journey starts with a single step. Just put one foot in front of the other. And don't be discouraged, because be adaptable, but don't be discouraged when you face inevitable setbacks, because they will come. And if it was easy, anyone would do it. I think for you, because I know that you're a patient, meticulous person, and I think those are really great qualities to have as an entrepreneur. I would say keep being patient and meticulous, because those are going to serve you really well.
Great. Thanks. And then my other question is when you're starting out with trying to acquire customers, what do you think is the biggest thing to focus on?
It's all a numbers game. There's something, you might know this expression, the law of averages. It basically means, if you talk to 10 people, 1 or 2 are going to become customers, but you have to be okay with the fact that 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 will just tell you no, or it's not a fit for whatever reason. But it doesn't mean that they will never be a fit, or that they can't be a source of referrals for you as well. So there's opportunity, and an opportunity to learn in every circumstance. So in terms of sales, I would say that when you're looking to persuade someone, don't actually try to do it. Try to get to a place, or eventually, if not immediately, where you're just being yourself, and you're just asking questions and you're kind of letting them sell themselves, because that's the best kind of sale. Because if people feel that you're trying to persuade them of anything, usually we naturally want to put our defenses up because no one wants to have someone else's idea or decision in their mind. People, we want to have free will as people, or at least we want to believe that we do. So I would say, you might want to check out a book related to sales. It's a very kind of win-win approach that's informed part of my perspective called, I think it's 3 Steps to Yes. 3 Steps to Yes. And it's kind of focused on like this kind of a questions-based approach. And I found that at the end of selling our services, kind of a funny story. So I remember in my last year in high school, for example, I just didn't give a damn. I didn't care about grades, and somehow the grade just kind of went up. And so this was kind of a similar circumstance where I was selling our services and I was getting to the point where I was about to decide, okay, we're going to, discontinue our services, or I wanted to find a way to get into the products business. But I would be getting on the phone with clients, and it would almost feel just very easy to have these conversations, and they would just be like, okay, like, let's do it. I think it's because I didn't feel invested in getting them to say yes. And I think that's really important. And that's, I think, what the perspective of the law of averages can teach you as well. Because if you accept that, most times people will just say no for whatever reason, people will say yes more often.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think those are the only questions I have for you.
Cool. All right. So let's stop it there. Tiffany, I want to thank you. Really appreciate you coming on here and just being open to where you're at and being vulnerable. I know that not everyone would do it. And a lot of people out there, think about starting a business. I just want to congratulate you on really taking this first step. I think it takes courage. So congratulations, and look forward to checking with you perhaps on a future interview.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Tiffany. I'm going to stop the recording now. Thanks, everyone, for watching.